Now we will learn about occupational hygiene. Occupational hygiene. This is the practice of assessment and control of environmental factors and stresses arising in or from the workplace, which may cause injury, sickness, impaired health and well-being, or significant discomfort and inefficiency among workers and citizens of the community. So, এইটো এটা assessment হয় and control of environmental factors. মানে occupational hygiene মানে কি হয়? When we control the environmental factors and stresses যোনটো আমাৰ workplace ৰ পৰা arise হয়, যেনে injury, sickness, impaired health মানে bad health, well-being or significant discomfort and inefficiency among workers and the citizens of the community. It encompasses the study of toxicology, number 2 industrial processes, chemical and physical behavior of air containment, chemical and physical behavior of air containments. Number 4 noise control, number 5 health effects of occupational hazards. Okay, occupational or industrial hygienes okay, so these are the people which use environmental monitoring and analytical methods to detect the extent of worker exposure and employ engineering work practice controls and other methods to control potential health hazards. Occupational or industrial hygienes must work with physicians to develop comprehensive occupational health programs and with epidemiologists to perform research on health effects. মানে হিহঁতে ডক্টৰছৰ লগত ফিজিচিয়ানছৰ লগত একেলগে কাম কৰিব লাগিব hand in hand to develop comprehensive occupational health programs. So next we will look upon occupational hazards include all kind of accidents and injuries. মানে কি হয় occupational hazard includes all kinds of happened at a workplace because of raw materials processing activities such as operating machineries and handling chemicals or any other working conditions. মানে chemicals वगैरह और machines handle কৰোঁতে যোনখিনি injury বা accidents হয় সেইখিনি occupational hazards বুলি কোৱা যায়. Workers, whether they are farmers, students, secretaries, teachers, industrial workers or soldiers, are exposed to some sort of hazards that may result from the nature of their day-to-day occupation. যোনটো সিহঁতৰ occupational পৰা result হয় যে সিহঁতৰ যোনবিলাক injury হয়. So these kind of working class are like farmers, students, teachers, industrial workers or soldiers. The identification of occupational health, safety and hygiene hazards has often come from observations of adverse health effects among workers. Unquestionably, it is in the workplace that the impact of the industrial exposures is best understood. So, the various hazards which give rise to occupational diseases or adversely affect health through work may be classified as কি ধৰণৰ hazards থাকিব পাৰে? Mechanical hazards. Number 3 chemical hazards. Number 4 biological hazards. Number 5, ergonomic hazards. Number 6, psychological hazards. Number 7, electrical hazards. Number 8, thermal hazards, etc. Okay, there is a number 9, vibroacoustic hazard. So these are the kinds of hazards that the working class faces in their industries or organizations. Now we will know about each one of them. So physical hazards have possible cumulative or immediate effect on the health of the employee. So these hazards, physical hazards, have immediate effect on the health of the employees. Therefore, employers or inspectors should be alert so as to protect the workers from adverse physical hazards. So physical hazards also have classifications. Okay, physical hazards include incorrect or improper temperature, ionizing radiation, non-ionizing radiation, excessive noise, etc. So these are the classifications of physical hazards. I'll write it down here. Incorrect temperature. Number 2, ionizing radiations. Number 3, non-ionizing radiation. Number 4, excessive noise. Okay, these are the conditions that the workers face in the physical hazards. So what are mechanical hazards? The mechanical hazards in industries are contributed by machineries and their moving parts. About 10% of the accidents in industries are said to be due to mechanical causes. So mechanical hazards constitute 10% of the hazards. So most of the hazards, you can say 10% of 100% hazards constitute in the mechanical hazards. Junbilak machineries opera hoy, junbilak hazards, hebilak hazards of mechanical hazards bila hoy. Chemical hazards. There is hardly any industry which does not make the use of chemicals. Mane pray bhag industries or chemical use korai hoy. The chemical hazards are on a rise with the introduction of newer and complex chemicals. So day by day industries bilakot notun chemicals use hoy ase. So chemical hazards is one of the major hazards that are being caused to the working class. Biological hazards. What are biological hazards? Knowing the biohazards and their classification based on severity of exposure problem is very important. It has to be understood that any involvement with biohazards material may cause an infection. When dealing with biological agents of unknown etiology, it must be ensured that it is not a biohazard. So amar jeneke corona ahisile etia corona to eta biohazard boli manuje doubt korise je etu labor pora ulaise virus to. So that can be also classified as biological hazards junbilak amar industries bilakot hoi thake. Ergonomic hazards. The term ergonomics was introduced by a group of physical, biological and psychological scientists and engineers to describe interdisciplinary activities that were designed to solve problems created by wartime technology. So those are ergonomic hazards. Psychological hazards. Let's see what is that. The term stress means the strain imposed on the worker by psychological influences associated with urbanization and work. So these hazards are mental hazards. Like you can say these are psychological hazards. Okay. So what is a psychological hazard? Jeta bahut stress hoy, psychological effect pore work class bilakot, so that is psychological hazard. Okay, electrical hazards. Number 7, workers are exposed to shock and electrical hazards due to worn out electric cords or damaged extension cords, incorrectly wired or ungrounded outlets, faulty equipment and wiring, damaged receptacles and connectors. মানে electrical equipments বিলাকৰ পৰা যোনবিলাক hazards হয়, যোনবিলাক safety precautions লোৱা নাযায়, তেতিয়া যোনবিলাক hazards হয় সেইবিলাক electrical hazards বোলা যায়. To prevent electrical hazards, ensure that exposed receptacle boxes be made of non-conductive material so that contact with the box will not constitute a ground. So তেতিয়া shock na lage. Jetia amar bhal equipment use kora hoy industries bilakot ba organizations bilakot. Inform all workers when hired about electrical hazards and are safe and the safe work practices to avoid the hazards. Mane work class bilako agotiyake junkhini guidelines hekhini provide korato necessary hoy jate electrical hazards to prevent koribo para jaok. Vibroacoustic hazards. Hazards caused by noise and mechanical vibrations in the working environment are called vibroacoustic hazards. Prevent koribole, develop and improve methods used to measure and evaluate health effects of noise, infrared and ultraviolet sounds and mechanical vibration. Develop ways and means to eliminate or reduce the harmful influence of these hazards. Okay. Thermal hazard. Thermal hazards are caused from objects or substances that transfer energy as heat. Energy to heat or suppose to transfer kora jay. Those hazards are called thermal hazards. An open flame is an example of a thermal hazard because it transfers energy to the surroundings as heat. So that is thermal hazard. Now with this we come to the end of the different types of hazards, occupational hazards. Next we will look upon the occupational diseases. Okay, occupational diseases are adverse health conditions in the human being, the occurrence of severity of which is related to exposure to factors on the job or in work environment. Such factors can include mane occupational diseases ki hobo pare, ki factors opra hobo pare. Physical, chemical, biological, ergonomic, psychological stressors. Number 6, mechanical. Okay, so let us see the examples of physical diseases. Or we can say factors which incur the diseases. It can be heat, noise, radiation. Okay, chemical ot ki thakibo pare, solvents, pesticides, dust, etc. Okay, biological, tuberculosis. Okay, HIV, hepatitis B. Okay, ergonomic, improperly designed tools or work areas. Improperly designed tools. Okay, psychological stressors, lack of control over work, inadequate personal support, personal support. So this is an example of psychological stresses. Now mechanical. These mainly cause work accidents and injuries rather than occupational disease. So these mechanical, you can say occupational disease is accidents, injuries. Okay, so now let's look upon the prevention of occupational disease. Primary prevention and ki ase? Primary prevention is accomplished by reducing the risk of disease. In the occupational setting, this is most commonly done by reducing the magnitude of exposure to hazardous substances. Other methods of exposure reduction include use of personal protective equipments. Use of protecting equipments. Okay. And rotation of workers through areas in which hazards are present to reduce the dose to each worker. These methods does, however, increase the number of workers exposed to the hazard. Now let's look upon the secondary prevention. So this is accomplished by identifying the health problems. Identifying health problems. Okay. Before they become clinically apparent, that is before workers report feeling ill. An example of secondary prevention is the measurement of blood lead levels in the workers exposed to lead. An elevated blood lead level indicates a failure of primary prevention but can allow for corrective action before clinically apparent lead poisoning occurs. মানে ব্লাডত লিডৰ পৰিমাণটো কিমান আছে হেতু সোৱা যায় তেতিয়া গম পোৱা যায় যে প্ৰাইমাৰী প্ৰিভেনশনটো কাম কৰিছে নে নাই যদি নাই কৰা দে গো ফৰ দা সেকেন্ডাৰী প্ৰিভেনশন নাও লেটস লুক ফৰ দা টাৰ্শাৰী প্ৰিভেনশন tertiary prevention. Okay, this is accomplished by minimizing the adverse clinical effects of a disease or exposure on a person's health. Typically this is thought of as a clinical occupational medicine. An example of tertiary prevention is the treatment of lead. Treatment of lead or lead. Some say it as lead. Okay. So the goal is to limit symptoms or discomfort, minimize injury to the body and maximize functional capacity. So these are the ways of prevention of occupational diseases. Now let's look upon accidents and safety. So what do you mean by an accident? An accident is a mishap, or a mishap is an unforeseen and unplanned event or circumstance, often with lack of intention or necessity. So it's a unforeseen and unplanned event. It usually implies a generally negative outcome which might have been avoided or prevented. Okay, classification of types of occupational accidents on the basis of hazards can be falls or being stuck by materials, striking against objects, being caught in, under or between objects. Okay, on the basis of agency, machines, means of transport and lifting equipments, work environment, etc. On the basis of injury, nature of injury, wounds, fractures, dislocations, burns, poisoning, diseases, etc. Location of the injury in the body, head, trunk, upper extremities, body system, etc. The occupational safety philosophy has been developed in order to prevent needless destruction of health and waste of human and other resources, raise the morale of workers, prevent inefficiency in the workplace, prevent social harm caused by accidents, promote accident prevention. So that is the aim of occupational safety. Okay. So now let's look upon the prevention and control of occupational accidents. The basic accident prevention guidelines are Eliminate the hazard from the machine, method, material or facility structure. Control or contain the hazard by enclosing or guarding it its source, or attaching an exhaust to the to remove airborne hazards from the operator. So we have to attach an exhaust to remove airborne hazards. Okay. Train operating personnel, prescribe personal protective equipment, provide advisory services on safety and health problems and other matters related to accident prevention, develop a centralized program, get updates on changes in legislation and safety codes and communicate this information to management. Managemental লগত কথা পাতি যোনবিলাক legislation safety codes বিলাক আছে এইখিনি বিষয়ে কথা পাতাটো বহুত দৰকাৰী. Work closely with the engineering, industrial, hygiene, medical and purchasing departments to ensure that only safe tools, equipments and supplies are purchased. মানে tools বিলাক safe হ'ব লাগিব, good to work with, and supplies বিলাক এনেকুৱা কিনিব লাগিব যোনবিলাকে harm নকৰে to the working class. Guide operations supervisor in accident investigation to determine the accidents caused to prevent recurrence. Okay. Collect and analyze data on illness and accidents for the purpose of instituting corrective action and to determine accident trends. Okay. Cooperate with industrial hygiene or environmental quality control personnel on industrial hygiene problems. So these are the ways, the basic accident prevention guidelines in the control of occupational accidents. So these can be followed to prevent the accidents.